Because right now, Malaysia is sitting on something that's so important in this world today that it can rewrite our entire wealth ranking globally. And we're not talking about oil or palm oil, we're talking about something that's so critical, it's powering everything important in our modern world.
Assalamualaikum, Elsa di sini. Hai guys, hai semua, halo tetangga. Gimana kabar kawan-kawan semua? Semoga sehat selalu, semoga bahagia selalu, dan semoga hari kawan-kawan semua selalu good day. Selamat datang di channel YouTube Widianti Putri. Hari ini kita akan membahas sebuah hal yang berkaitan dengan Malaysia akan menjadi negara terkaya di Asia Tenggara pada tahun 2040. Bahkan katanya lebih kaya dari Singapura, yang dimana Singapura selalu menduduki posisi pertama dalam berbagai aspek. Prediksi ini mengatakan bahwa 2040 itu akan berbalik. Kalau kita lihat di situasi yang sekarang, mungkin itu bisa juga terjadi karena melihat potensi Malaysia, melihat ringgit Malaysia yang stabil, bahkan naik dari bulan ke bulan gitu, dari waktu ke waktu naik yang secara signifikan. Nah, kita akan membahasnya video kali ini dari Mr. Money TV. Langsung aja di subscribe. Narasi bahwa Malaysia akan menjadi negara terkaya di Asia Tenggara sering kali merujuk pada potensi produk domestik bruto atau PBD dan kekuatan industri baru. Saat ini Singapura adalah pemimpin dalam hal pendapatan per kapita, namun keterbatasan lahan dan biaya operasional yang mulai mencapai titik jenuh. Malaysia di sisi lain sedang berada di titik balik transformasinya, dan ini bisa jadi merupakan titik balik Malaysia pada tahun yang diprediksi 2040 untuk menjadi negara terkaya di Asia Tenggara. Bagaimana menurut teman-teman? Coba komen aja di bawah ya. Tapi sebelum dimulai video reactionnya, seperti biasa aku mau ajakin teman-teman semua dulu untuk subscribe channel ini dan aktifkan lonceng notifikasinya supaya tidak ketinggalan updatean terbaru dari channel ini. Dan bagi teman-teman yang mau request, bisa banget DM Instagram aku di @widianti_putri. Tanpa berlama-lama, tanpa membuang masa, jumlah kita mulai video reactionnya. Are you ready? Let's go.
What if I tell you that Malaysia could become the richest country in Southeast Asia by 2040? We are talking about richer than Singapore. Because right now, Malaysia is sitting on something that's so important in this world today that it can rewrite our entire wealth ranking globally. And we are not talking about oil or palm oil, we are talking about something that's so critical, it's powering everything important in our modern world.
RII itu adalah bahan utama pembuatan motor listrik, turbin angin, dan perangkat pertahanan canggih ya guys.
Could this rare earth element lift Malaysia out of the middle income trap into a high income powerhouse? So let us break it down in this video. Let's start from the very beginning. What is rare earth element? Remember in school, you have probably seen this thing before. It's called the periodic table. And under there, there's a 17 special element. And it has names that's really difficult to pronounce, such as lanthanum, ethium, scandium, and so on. And these elements are literally what is powering the world that we are living in today. Today, they are used in all sorts of high-tech products because they are able to make magnets stronger, your phone smaller, motor faster, and energy cleaner. Think about an EV such as Tesla. It carries around 2 kilograms of rare earth magnets. And wind turbines, it has about 200 to 600 kilograms of them. And our phone, the one that you're using to watch this video right now, it probably have around 16 different rare earth working quietly inside.
Just to allow you to watch this video.
But that's not it. It is also extremely useful in military stuff, such as the F-35 fighter jet. It has 417 kilograms of rare earth element in it. So here's the thing, without these elements, the modern world that we are living in today will simply stop working. Now, before we move on, let's demystify one thing. The word rare earth element. They are not actually rare. There are plenty of them in the ground, but they are scattered all over the world, and the difficult part is actually in separating it. And that is what makes them so expensive, strategic, and heavily controlled. In short, they are actually not that rare. They are just really hard to process. And over the past decade, there's this one country that dominates the supply of rare earth element to the rest of the world. And that is China. Back in the 1980s, United States actually dominated the rare earth industry. But in 1992, China's leader Deng Xiaoping saw something about this rare earth industry and decided that he wants to dominate it. In fact, he said something like this: the Middle East has oil, but China has rare earth. Because at that time, the world did not thought rare earth is going to be that important, but China saw it, so they decided to dominate it. Backed by state support, cheap labors, and looser environmental rules, Chinese rare earth producers was able to sell rare earth at a price that Western mines could never match. So eventually over the years, one by one, the mines in US and Australia closed down. Not because the resources of rare earth ran out, but because competition was
Persaingan
impossible
ya.
to beat. And also at the same time, there's tighter and tighter environmental control. So by the late 2000s, China controlled almost 100% of global supply of rare earth. So when every other country was starting to build smartphone, EV, missiles, well, all of them needed that rare earth material coming out from China. Then by 2010, there was a wake-up call. A Chinese trawler collided with a Japanese Coast Guard vessel near the Senkaku Island. In response to that, Beijing quietly banned the rare earth export to Japan. Japan at the time was the electronics capital of the world, which means they needed a lot of rare earth to make their products. And because of that ban, suddenly they could not make phones, battery, or even precision motor. Many of their factories halted, and people couldn't go to work. And that was the first time the world realized whoever controls rare earth can control the future. And that one incident changed everything. US, Australia, Japan, and Europe scrambled to start rebuilding their own supply chain for rare earth. Australia restarted their mine, and US classified rare earth as a critical resource to national security. The EU too passed the Critical Rare Earth Act. But even after 15 years of scrambling, China is still way far ahead, because catching up on rare earth element supply is not just about money, it's about time and rules. You see, mining and refining rare earth can create toxic waste and radiation risks. You see, China was able to move really fast in the rare earth refining industry because they have looser environmental rules compared to
Tidak
those Western
ketat ya
countries. Today, they are
peraturan
probably
di
better,
China
but
ini.
imagine back then, it was even way looser. So during that period of time, there were rumors of entire villages near processing zones that were reported with polluted river, infertile soil, and unexplained illnesses. And many activists at the time called these places cancer villages. And that was the hidden cost
Masa
of
cancer.
China becoming the world's rare earth element factory. Comparing to countries like Australia, Japan, and US, who must meet very strict environmental and humanitarian laws, they were definitely slower. And that's a good thing, but it kind of slows them down because doing things the right way is quite expensive. And here's the twist. While the rest of the world is trying to build a safe processing capacity, Malaysia already has it. So, how did Malaysia even enter in this whole rare earth element race? Well, the whole thing started back in the 1980s, quietly,
Wow.
with the Mitsubishi
1980-an guys, di Bukit Merah Perak, Mitsubishi Asian Rare Earth Plant.
Asian Rare Earth Plant
Udah
in
lama
Bukit
banget
Merah
berarti
Perak,
mulainya.
one of Asia's first processing facilities. Back then, it was really ambitious, but safety standards was quite low, which storage issue actually sparked protests, and by the 1990s, the whole plant shut down. And that whole episode left Malaysians
Ditutup
with
ya,
cautious.
1999.
But we're not out of the game. You see, 2 decades later, a global crisis opened the door. Remember we talked about China banning the export of rare earth element to Japan? Well, that was the time that Japan realized they needed an alternative source. And that's how this whole thing started. Linus, an Australian company that was backed by Japanese investor, decided to build a processing plant in Malaysia, in Gebeng, Pahang. So, why in Malaysia? The answer is simple, because Malaysia had something that many other countries did not have. That is the chemical expertise from our petroleum and semiconductor sector. On top of that, comparing to some other nations, we do have a stronger regulatory framework. And also, we have this strategic proximity to other Asia's manufacturing hub. So, by 2012, the Linus Advanced Material Plant began operating. And over the next decade, Malaysia actually quietly became the only large-scale rare earth processor outside of China, and we have been supplying materials to Japan, US, and Europe. Now, fast forward to 2025. With the US-China trade war going on, China decided to impose stricter export laws on their rare earth elements. And this little move by China truly puts the United States into a difficult position, because up to today, China government controls more than 90% of the global rare earth element supply. And the United States can only grow its technology sector, whether it's in military or is it in chips design, if it can get its hands on the rare earth elements. And that's where they realize they need to stop depending on China. And here gives Malaysia a chance to shine. There is this deal that promises two major things. First, Malaysia has assured the United States that we will not impose export restriction on processed rare earth material. This gives American manufacturers the confidence to rely on Malaysia as a long-term supplier outside of China. And second, in return, the US will invest in advanced rare earth refinement and magnet technology right here in Malaysia itself. This means we are able to build high-value processing plant that goes beyond just the simple separation of material that we are currently at. Now, this kind of facilities that can produce finished materials for EV motors, wind turbine, and defense system is where the true value lies. You see, the price of a raw or separated oxides is already really high, but refined materials and magnet can be worth 10 to 50 times more. And this means if we can manufacture them here in Malaysia, it will come together with high-tech jobs, higher salary, and higher GDP for Malaysia. At the same time, Malaysia and China are also in talks to expand our rare earth cooperation. You see, China has the world's deepest expertise in refining rare earth, but it's also famously cautious of exporting its know-how. And that's why having both China and the US interested in Malaysia is actually a unique position of strength to us. And for me, it's kind of like a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Because if the US were to transfer technology to Malaysia, just like how Intel did in Penang decades ago, we could build our own rare earth ecosystem, just as we built a semiconductor one. And that's how Penang became Malaysia's Silicon Valley. And possibly in future, this could make Malaysia the strategic powerhouse of Southeast Asia. Not just Southeast Asia, but globally. Let's take a look at the numbers and see how could this transform our Malaysian economy. Think of it, chemical engineers could be earning about 8,000 to 15,000 ringgit a month in this rare earth refining plant. 15 to 25,000 direct jobs creation and up to 80,000 indirect jobs creation. The value chain of this rare earth element refinement is massive. And when it comes to the material, there's a huge price difference. To give you a picture of it, raw ore sells about $2,000 a ton. And when it comes to processed oxide, that's 20 to 100,000 per ton. And if you are able to produce magnets, we are talking about up to $200 per kilogram of it. So at the end of the day, this could be a $15 to $20 billion industry, equal to palm oil but far more advanced. So it truly sounds like Malaysia is sitting on this great opportunity. But here's the thing, every opportunity comes with a cost. And this is where the dilemma begins. You see, mining rare earth will mean that we need to clear more land. And sometimes, many of these places are in the forest area. So this means deforestation, erosion, and biodiversity loss. Processing rare earth also means handling radioactive waste
supaya tidak mengakibatkan kerusakan lingkungan juga karena pengelolaan logam tanah gitu kan. Ada limbah radioaktif gitu, gawat.
So think about it, every ton of rare earth that we refine could power thousands of EVs. But it could also leave behind waste that last generation. So the question is simple. Can Malaysia get rich without getting poisoned? You see, there are other countries that have learned this the hard way. China's industrial boom have left behind polluted soil and sick communities. So does it mean that we don't take this opportunity and build a rare earth element industry? Well, I do not know, but it sure does look like our government is going ahead with it. And I personally think that there's nothing wrong as long as we can be sure that we have a responsible development plan. So what does a responsible development plan look like? I believe it should start with transparency. Firstly, let's talk about real-time public radiation and water monitoring. Let's have some independent audit and strict enforcement. Then when it comes to the
Transparency.
long-term waste management, well, let's better do something about it. I heard that Malaysia is developing a permanent disposable facility for liners low-level waste, and it comes together with a 50-year promise of safety and accountability. But is 50 years enough? Next, we also need to talk about protecting our water and forests, and perhaps no mining in reserve area or catchment zone. Then there's a whole discussion about closed-loop water recycling, public binding environmental impact assessment, and so on. Ultimately, what we want is accountability. And I think the companies who are involved in this should also post environmental bonds. Maybe put up some sort of a financial guarantee to ensure cleanup if anything goes wrong. I think Malaysia should lock in the lead in this rare earth element refining industry. And how can we do that? Well, firstly, we need to complete the value chain from raw material to finished product. Let's talk about being able to build magnet factories, metal refinery, and recycling hub here. And that's how we move from merely being an exporter of processed material to being a manufacturer of high-value goods. Step 2, let's also talk about forging global partnership. The US trade deal is just a start. With rare earth being so precious all over the world, Malaysia can now build on that trust with Japan, South Korea, and EU. And with the right regulation in place, we could also be offering a cleaner and more stable non-China rare earth element in exchange for technology and long-term investment from these countries. And step number 3, which I think is the most important, which is to invest in our local talents.
Yeah,
you see, at the end of
local
the day,
talent,
rare
yeah.
earth elements is not just about mining. It's about knowledge,
Manusianya
it's about
juga.
technology. And with this, we need to ramp up our R&D. Malaysia only spend less than 1% of our national GDP on R&D. I think we need to spend more, perhaps build more university programs, work with industry, invest in our knowledge of rare earth elements so that we can have great talents to manage this industry and to work in it. Perhaps even coming up with better solutions that other countries do not have. That way we move from being just a normal refiner to an owner of IP, which is highly valuable. So today Malaysia is truly sitting on a great opportunity. But the question is this: how do we make sure that Malaysia can win this rare earth race without losing our environment? Can we chase economic growth without poisoning our people? Can we lift our income without cutting down our forests? Because this time, it's really not just about what's in the ground, it's about who we want to become as a nation. And if we do it right, REE could be Malaysia's new oil. It can be the key that unlock our high-income future. But if we do wrong, we risk repeating the same mistake that poisoned others before us.
Jadi harus penuh pertimbangan juga ya guys. Harus memikirkan keadaan lingkungan di sekitar tanpa merusak alam, tanpa merusak Malaysia juga tentunya gitu kan. REE ini adalah bahan utama pembuatan motor listrik, EV, turbin angin, dan perangkap pertahanan yang canggih. Keunggulan kompetitif Malaysia memiliki cadangan REE non-radioaktif yang besar. Jika Malaysia berhasil membangun industri hilir atau pemprosesan dan hanya tidak mengekspor bahan mentah, ini menjadi nilai tambahan yang akan melonjak secara drastis. Tadi Cina kita tahu dia memang memegang kendali hampir 90% untuk di dunia REE ini ya guys, dimana dunia sedang mencari alternatif selain Tiongkok untuk pemasokan REE ini, dan Malaysia menjadi kandidat yang paling kuat, yang terkuat lah, karena pusat data regional di kawasan Johor seperti Sendenak dan Nusa Jaya kini menjadi hub pusat data terbesar di Asia Tenggara. Perusahaan seperti Nvidia, Microsoft, Google, dan Amazon telah menginvestasikan miliaran dolar di Malaysia sampai Malaysia menyia-nyiakan potensi masyarakat lokalnya. Malaysia diprediksi ya guys tidak lagi bergantung pada minyak bumi atau Petronas, melainkan pada teknologi tinggi, energi hijau, dan pengelolaan sumber daya strategis. Jadi bagaimana teman-teman untuk video kali ini? Semoga video kali ini bisa menambah informasi bagi kita semua, dan bagi teman-teman yang suka sama video ini jangan lupa untuk like, komen, dan subscribe. Kita ketemu di next video. Bye bye. Assalamualaikum.